Welcome to Making a Monster, where we break down a movie, its monsters, and turn it into a foe for your tabletop adventures. In this episode, we'll be exploring The Ruins, the 2008 film that sees a group of friends thinking exploring an ancient Mayan temple off the beaten path is a good idea. Spoilers, it's not. Our movie opens with advanced darkness, leading to a woman's end. Not dwelling here, on to the main cast: Jeff, Amy, Stacy, and Eric. After Amy has a little meltdown over losing her favorite earring, we're introduced to Matthias, who finds the earring in a pool. After offering to buy him a drink, he tells them that he's here with his brother, who's an archaeologist, who left with a woman for a dig site. Anyone want to bet that she's dead from the beginning of the movie? That night, Amy gets properly hammered and tries to, let's say, dance with Jeff. After being rejected by Jeff, she then tries to dance with Matthias, and he also rejects her. Being properly drunk the night before a long hike? Have fun with that, girl. The next day, the group sets out, and with the help of a very reluctant taxi driver, bribery goes a long way in Mexico, I guess, they are brought to within walking distance of their destination. Taxi driver won't go any further. Maybe that's a red flag? Reluctant doomsayer taxi driver still not enough? Well, the path that takes you to this hidden ruin is covered in ferns and hidden away, so red flag number 2. When they finally arrive at the temple, the earth around it is completely barren. Ignoring the "this is clearly taken care of" signs, the group gets their tourist on, until a group of men come out of the jungle yelling at them. Thinking it's all about money, the group tries to pay them off, and in the process, Amy steps back into some of the plants surrounding the temple. Then all hell breaks loose. A disposable group member steps into the plants to take Amy's camera and give it to the men, thinking that's the reason, and he just gets terminated, man. Arrow straight to the chest. As the group runs up the temple and takes stock of their situation, they notice more people coming out of the woods before hearing a phone ring. Matthias goes to investigate, but while being lowered down, the rope snaps. Alive but with a broken back, Matthias is now stuck in the temple. Stacy is sent down to fetch old Snappy Back and informs the group that his back is definitely broken. Jeff, being a med student, says that they need to build a back brace, which leads to Amy having a freak out. I'm not going to go into it, but Amy, she's pretty much the worst. She goes down to the base of the temple to beg for help, and in the process throws some vines at a kid. The kid just gets domed, no questions asked, so nice going, Amy. Backboard built, Amy gets lowered down into the temple to help Stacy move Matthias. They manage to get him out of the temple, and after some false hope, the group sees fires, proving that the people are still watching them. The next day, Jeff discovers the plants have bloomed over a very crispy human corpse. At the same time, Stacy awakens to discover that vines from the temple have made their way inside of an open wound on her knee. The same fate befalls Matthias's legs as well, only much worse. Amy and Stacy head into the temple again to find the source of the ringing phone, only to discover the plants are actually producing the sound and are both attacked. At the surface, Amy explains that the plants produced the sound. And now for the most gruesome part of the film. Jeff, checking on Matthias, realizes that his legs are badly infected. This leads to Matthias agreeing to the removal of his legs if it means he might live. With a stone, a leather belt, and some booze, and a hot cast iron skillet, they successfully perform the amputation. The legs get tossed to the side, which are taken by the plants. That night, the group wallows in their misery, and the plants actually begin mimicking Amy and Eric, making it appear as though they're having a little hookup session, enraging Stacy. With the group distracted, the plants take Matthias, literally down his throat, choking him out. Out front, we see the locals salting the earth to help contain the plants. The next morning, Stacy is shown to have vines growing inside of her, and Jeff, being the medical legend that he is, cuts them out. But unfortunately, there's just too many. Later on, Stacy just says screw it, hacks herself up, trying to get all the plants out of her, and in the process, Eric tries to calm her down, getting a shank right to the chest. Eric dies and is taken by the vines immediately. Stacy is mercy killed, and using Stacy's blood, Jeff covers Amy to carry her down the temple, faking her death. Jeff then baits the Mayans away as Amy gets up and runs, and sadly, Jeff takes a couple arrows and meets his end. Amy gets away, but not before we're shown that she has vines growing inside of her. So carnivorous plants are not fictional. We know about Venus flytraps, sundews, pitcher plants. These vines, though, they have an amazing sentience never seen in the plant world that we know of. I mean, maybe the spider plant in my office secretly understands me. Typical carnivorous plants are the result of their environment, usually wet, low nutrient sites. Many of them have evolved because an essential nutrient was missing from the soil, so they found it another way. Oh, and fun fact, there are over 600 species of carnivorous plants discovered. So what could this plant actually be? I believe the vines are a form of Boquilla. I don't know if I'm actually saying that right. A vine species native to Chile and Argentina. Unlike our killer vines, plants in the ruins, the Baquila actually produce an edible berry. Baquila is a unique plant because it's known for its mimicry. The vines will mimic its host tree. How this happens is unknown, but in a 2022 paper, it was suggested that the plant has some sort of vision using a chili. This hypothesis is based on experiments in which the vines appeared to mimic artificial plants. The killer vines found in the film are able to mimic sounds as opposed to appearance, which seems like a stretch, but in recent studies, plants have been found that when stressed, they emit an ultrasonic squeal. There are also studies that suggest plants can sense touch, smell, taste, and hear. These are all still theories, though, would make talking to your plants a lot less creepy. The dexterity of the vines could be attributed to a form of sundew, which is a carnivorous plant that lures, captures, and digests insects using stalked mucilaginous glands covering their leaves. Plants do have a form of motor control over themselves, air quotes here. Most species of plants, if they sense changes in barometric pressure, will angle their leaves downwards to help direct rainfall to their root systems. You know, this brings up the question, what happens to vegetarians if science concludes that plants feel pain and think? So we know what the vines are possibly based on. Let's turn this thing into a monster. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the temple creeper. Long ago, forgotten people buried their dead within a sacred temple. As part of their ritual, they would place a red trumpeted flower upon the dead. Over time, these flowers grew, feasting on the dead. But when the people vanished and the food source with them, the temple creeper evolved, learning to mimic animals, luring them in to satiate its thirst for blood. With a singular purpose of feeding, the temple creeper now spreads wherever it can, tricking hapless people and beasts alike to their grisly end. The temple creeper is a challenge rating 3 neutral huge beast, but the size of the vines can grow or shrink depending on DM discretion. It's AC of 10. I mean, it's a giant vine mound. It's pretty easy to hit. 75 HP, 0 movement speed. It's completely stationary. 14 strength, 12 dex, 13 con, 10 int, 8 whiz, 14 charisma. The creature itself isn't intelligent, it's instinctual. While your DM may decide to play the creeper as more of a malicious entity, I've designed it to just be simply a life form trying to live. That being said, the vines in the film did showcase a level of intelligence, specifically when they manipulated the group to attain Matthias's sweet, sweet body juices. The fact that I wrote that and then still recorded it makes me question myself. It's resistant to bludgeoning, force, and psychic damage, and vulnerable to fire, cold, and poison. It's also immune to blind, charm, exhaustion, grapple, and paralyzed. It has blind sight and tremor sense for 50 feet. The creeper has a number of fun little features. First, it has a multi-attack where it attacks twice with its lash attack. Lash is a weapon attack, it's really its vines, with a 15-foot range, and on hit, may constrict the character with a failed strength check unless the character is prone, in which case the constriction always happens. Vine Sweep hits up to 3 targets within 15 feet. If it hits the target, they must make a dex save or be knocked prone. Another 15-foot attack range move is Pierce, but unlike the others, it doesn't do much damage. Instead, on a failed con save, the PC is infected. If a character is constricted, they must make a strength save to break free. They can attack, however, when constricted, they're just unable to physically move around the field. If a player is infected, the player carries the creeper spores for 24 hours before the spores awaken and begin consuming the character. Lastly, the creeper has a mimic sound ability, which allows it to bait unwitting prey within striking distance of its attacks. The Ruins is a wonderful film. One part body horror, one part survival horror, one part Amy is an annoying. When I first saw it, I remember feeling the same way about it that I felt around the original Cabin in the Woods from the early 2000s. The film's pacing is excellent, the acting is well done, and the gore effects are properly gruesome. When I first decided to do The Ruins, I thought to myself, there are about 1 million killer plants in D&D, how am I going to make this special? And you know what? I actually had a lot of fun creating this. Have you seen The Ruins? How would you use the Temple Creeper in your campaign? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, please give it a like and maybe even subscribe. Until next time.